In this episode, we discussed whether the Kia Niro can go head-to-head with the Toyota Prius. We ponder whether a four-cylinder BMW 5 Series can still be the ultimate driving machine, and we answer viewer questions. Next on Talking Cars. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Talking Cars with Consumer Reports. I'm Mike Monticello.
I'm Jake Fisher.
And I'm John Lincove.
So we've recently taken delivery of a new car, this 2017 Kia Niro behind us. And this is an all-new hatchback hybrid that's aimed directly at the Toyota Prius. Now, many have come before that have tried to cut into the sales of the Prius, but no one's really been that successful. So what do you see so far, let's start with you, John, that this Kia Niro brings to the table that maybe says that it could cut into some of those Prius sales?
So it's definitely not styled anywhere as radically as the Prius. So it's got the SUV look that is popular. I mean, SUVs are a huge segment right now. So it has that four-door crossover, if you will, look. It's front-wheel drive, so it's not a big snow vehicle. But right there, it has a look that's not going to turn people off immediately. But if you're in that market for a hybrid, it's not all about looks, it's definitely how it's going to deliver. Is it going to give you the fuel economy? Is it going to be a smooth transition from gas and electric back and forth? That's where it may bring them in by the looks, but it's going to have to deliver some meat.
Well, let's talk about the fuel economy. I mean, if so far the EPA says this is going to get between 43 to 50 miles per gallon combined, and that's a little below the Prius. The Prius is 52 miles per gallon combined. Is that already a problem for a car that's trying to take down the Prius?
Well, I think there's a bunch of problems. I mean, kind of the question is, what is this car going to bring to the table? How is it going to get people from Priuses? I don't know if it really is at all. Certainly it looks more plain. I don't know if that's a big selling point, especially when it's coming from a Prius. And the fuel economy, I mean, we haven't finished testing the fuel economy right now on it. I do not expect it's going to get the same 52 miles per gallon the Prius is. The government tests are below the Prius. We expect the same here. So you're getting a car that doesn't look as much as a fuel saver or distinctive. We have a vehicle that does not deliver the same fuel efficiency of it. It's going to be a little bit of a hard sell.
I was going to just jump in. Even where we talk about styling hasn't hurt Prius because it's been a successful vehicle with huge sales numbers over the years. So people who like Prius and what it delivers aren't put off by the styling. They like that fuel economy.
I think because it kind of screams hybrid, the Prius does, whereas this one doesn't. But you think maybe that could be a selling point, is this one doesn't scream hybrid. It doesn't even scream hybrid inside the car. The controls are very normal, very traditional, very easy to use. It doesn't have a crazy screen, doesn't have a weird shifter.
But we've been here before. Yeah. So, I mean, Honda Civic used to have a hybrid that was actually looked more normal, yep. Right? Didn't quite get the fuel efficiency of the Prius, but was pretty close. Drove very normal, didn't really stand out. It did terrible in the market, and we don't have it anymore. Meanwhile, the Prius continues to be very successful.
Now, but you and I have driven this. We've driven this car, and I will say that I think it actually looks kind of sporty, especially compared to the Prius. It doesn't drive that sporty, but it drives nicer than the Prius. I think it's a more enjoyable car to drive than the Prius. That's a pretty low bar, I think, that we're talking about.
Well, I mean, the new Prius isn't bad.
Right, but I think this one's a little bit better. A little better steering feel, a little better turn-in.
It feels pretty solid.
Feels a little sportier.
That's the key. It's solid, having a substantial feel to it versus feeling tinny or light, or like they compensated somewhere to get that mileage.
And so it uses a 1.6-liter four-cylinder with a dual-clutch transmission. Now, that's very different. Most hybrids have CVTs, or continuously variable transmissions. The benefit here is this drives more like a normal car.
Right.
You don't have that, even though the Prius's CVT has gotten pretty good, you don't have any of that, where it winds way up. This one acts like a normal transmission.
Well,
automatic transmission.
I mean, look, there's two ways to kind of talk about this. One is kind of what do we expect the market's going to do? The other question is, what is it? So in terms of, do people want a fuel saver that just seems very normal and doesn't stand out? I'm not so sure. Right. But you were exactly right. I mean, this does feel like a very substantial type of vehicle. It drives very normal. It's quiet. It's not bad to drive. It's no sports car, but it's not. It's a little bit more polished in some ways than the Prius.
Right. Now, they're marketing it as a crossover. I don't know if you've seen their advertising, but they're calling it a crossover. Is that disingenuous to call it a crossover, or is the line so blurred these days between car, crossover, SUV.
It's a crossover between a normal car and a Prius, is what it is. I mean, so it's what you're crossing over. I mean, clearly, look, price of entry is going to be available all-wheel drive for what we consider crossovers or car-based SUVs, or what this sort of looks like. Kind of looks like a Crosstrek, Subaru Crosstrek or something like that. It's not. You can't get it with all-wheel drive. It's not going to suit people in the Northeast, which would be an opportunity for former Prius drivers.
Right. That's the one thing. Let's not forget. Almost every crossover is available in front-wheel drive or some version of that. So, a large tier of the country gets crossovers, and then they get front or just even rear-wheel drive SUVs, and they live with them.
Right.
So it may play all right in southern tier states. And, a set of snows, it'll be okay-ish in the winter. You do something like that up here in the Northeast. I think it's just all blending of words and throwing out a lot of jargon almost, if you will, to make people interested in, it's a crossover, and I've heard of crossovers. I'll come into the Kia dealership. Really, if it has something differentiating from Prius, it would be if it had all-wheel drive.
Right, so what they may be going for is, okay, so this is a crossover that's a hybrid, not just a hatchback car that's a hybrid. I mean, maybe that's what they're going for by calling it a crossover.
It's true, but when you look at what it actually does, I mean, look, you could buy a Chevy Cruze hatchback, and you could get 40 miles per gallon easily on the highway.
Right.
So maybe, I'm not sure what it really brings to the table beyond that.
Now, it could be part of the bigger Kia plan with their electric and their plug-in, and
Sure.
It's going to be all the package. They're going to start offering something for everyone, much like Toyota and with Lexus does. We have hybrid SUV, and then we have the hybrid sedan, and this and that, and a smaller one and the bigger one. So they're building out a portfolio.
Yeah, well, it does start, it is cheaper than a Prius. The starting price is $23,785. That's about $1,700 less than a Prius. So for people who really are cost conscious, I mean, that's another potential selling point. But I see you smiling. I think you're already saying it doesn't matter that it's $1,700 cheaper.
I guess what I'm smiling is that, again, we've been here before.
Yeah.
That was, remember the Civic Hybrid? It was probably around $1,700 cheaper. It was a bit cheaper than the Prius, and it had all these things, and it seems like the market just didn't really play out for
Even
that.
Insight was there, where it had the weird
Right.
styling like a Prius, and I'm not even talking the first weird Insight. I'm talking the second weird Insight.
Right.
But it did all these strange things, and it still didn't get the mileage, and it would turn off the air conditioning, and
Yeah.
Well, we'll know a lot more once we do our testing and we get fuel mileage. We find out what the overall, according to our testing, is, and maybe it'll be better than what it's looking like it's going to get. But for now, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
And of course, we have no idea what the market's going to do. So, switching gears, another new car in our fleet is the redesigned BMW 5 Series. Now, this is their mid-sized luxury sedan, and we took delivery of a 2017 530i xDrive, which means it has all-wheel drive instead of rear-wheel drive, and it has a turbocharged 4-cylinder. Now, in the past, BMW has really been known for their inline 6-cylinder engines, which are really smooth, have a sweet sound, big hit with their owners. So I guess I'm wondering, is a turbo 4-cylinder BMW, can it still be the ultimate driving machine?
I think there's more to it than just engine note, even performance for driving. I was pleasantly surprised with the car, but it follows an industry trend. Mercedes-Benz with the E-Class, Audi with the A6. You're seeing these 4-cylinder turbos replacing the bigger 6s and 8s even, as a way of getting power and fuel economy.
And fuel economy is really the big reason why they're doing that. I mean, this is supposed to get 27 miles per gallon combined with the EPA. So, I mean, that's pretty decent.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen 2-liter turbo on the 3 Series, and it delivers decent performance, and it delivers really nice fuel economy too. So it makes sense. I mean, what I really miss is just being able to make sense out of what 530 means and 540. It used to be like 3.0 meant 3-liter, and we're past that, right? It's a 2-liter turbo, and now the 540 is an inline 6. It's really confusing for consumers because actually what they're getting. But in the end, I mean, like John says, it doesn't really even matter. You get a car with a lower number, it's cheaper, and it has one level of performance. The more expensive car has a higher level of performance. How they get there and how they make the sausage is probably less important. If you're driving it, okay, yes, maybe the exhaust note or the sound of it. But I mean, a lot of the manufacturers, they're putting in artificial exhaust notes into the car, and it almost gives the same kind of sound that you would get from a normally aspirated non-turbo engine too. So ultimately, if you're getting the fuel efficiency, you're getting the performance, you're not getting an annoying, strained engine sound.
They did a really good job with that.
Sure.
I mean, when I first got in the car, I thought, okay, a 5 Series with this little 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo, it's not going to feel like much. But they've done a really good job. It has good power. The transmission works really well, quick shifts, very responsive. So even if you're not in the right gear, it gets back into the right gear very quickly. And it's also a very smooth riding car. It's a little smoother and softer than I thought, typically think of BMWs. And exceedingly quiet. I mean, hardly any wind noise, hardly any road noise. It really is impressive.
The quietness, I think, is really what stands out upon it. And when it really comes down to not having the engine performance or the size of the engine or whatever, it's about hearing that strained engine. It's not pleasant driving a car, and especially a $60,000 plus car that's straining to get into traffic. Well, you're not going to hear any of that. The car is so quiet and serene and very solid feeling and rides nice and all those things. It's that level of isolation, it doesn't matter if it's a 1-liter turbo supercharger, it doesn't even matter. It's a pleasant experience.
Right. Yeah, you're at the level of isolation and comfort and coddling, if you will, that you expect at that. In fact, probably the worst sound of the car is if you're standing outside and you hear the direct injection tick, 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 tick. It almost sounds like a diesel engine from the outside. The inside, you wouldn't know that at all.
Well, that's kind of interesting because we had a reader question where someone wrote in that talking about a previous episode where Mike Quincy said that he didn't like the note of the 330i, which has the same engine, BMW 330i. And this reader said, Mr. Quincy is right on the sound note of the 330 engine. I have a BMW with that engine, and it has great performance and mileage, but the sound is terrible and diesel-like. I hope CR buys the new BMW 540i, which we didn't, so that we can get their take on the new Turbo Straight 6. But what's interesting about that is that I don't want to say it's night and day. The 330 is a little bit gruff, a little bit gravelly, and it's a little bit loud.
When they first launched that engine in the 3 Series, when they initially had the start-stop technology, it was just the worst we've ever experienced because that engine sound, they didn't have the sound deadening of it, and you'd be a stop, and all of a sudden you hear the engine turn over again. It sounds like a tractor starting.
It's like a lawn tractor, exactly.
And you just need to be able to isolate that from the passenger, and then we see that in the 5 Series. It doesn't matter if it's the same engine; it's just if you're isolating that sound.
Yeah, you have a bigger car. You have more space for sound deadening. You have a bigger engine bay, so you have more room for it to be absorbed and leak out. It's a different experience. At the end of the day, look, if you're really worried about exhaust note, get an aftermarket exhaust or something like that. But BMW, like Jake said, manufacturers are tuning it now, so you're getting an exhaust note that may or may not be real, depending on what mode of the button you're putting on the dash, whether you're in Eco or Comfort or Sport or Sport Plus. All these different modes change the engine idle, and you can have a nicer exhaust note if you just want to always run around in Sport Plus, for example.
Now, this car also is huge into high-tech stuff, I mean, there's so many features you can order. It's a little bit dizzying, actually. A couple of them are you can get gesture control and 3D remote view. And I know you guys have some opinions on that. Do you want to start with gesture control?
Yeah, there's a gesture control. I can't
now gesture control
do on this show.
Gesture control is where you can adjust the volume and stuff with your finger.
You could do some controls by driving down the road. You're looking ahead, and then you want to change the volume, for example, so you spin your hand. But there's a lag, and it has to watch for your hand. I've inevitably found that you turn your hand and all of a sudden the radio's blaring, and then you just quickly dial it down, and then I say forget it, and for the rest of the time I use the radio volume knob or maybe even the steering wheel control. Why? And why do we need something that's going to break? Why do we need?
What about 3D remote view?
Well, I mean, just on the gesture control. I mean, so John, you're saying that it's not an advantage to take your hand off the steering wheel
in the ultimate driving machine, mind you,
and do this to try to turn the volume up, and that's not helpful to you.
It's a good conversation starter for your passenger.
It is, and as is the 3D remote view, which is so we have more and more cameras on these cars, right? I mean, it started out you had a rear camera, and now you have cameras all around, which gives you this, and we've seen this in other cars where you have this like kind of on top view, where you could see, it could really nice for parking the car.
Yeah, the bird's eye 360
degree view of the car, which is great. So what they decided to do in their app, and the app has, the BMW app, connected app, has a bunch of neat things, like I could set the navigation system on my phone and before I get in the car, all these cool things. But what it has is this crazy 3D view where I could take a picture and place the car where it is. So I could look all around, even if I'm not in the car, which has an application of impressing my friends. I mean, I guess conceivably you could see where the car is parked in a parking garage, but generally it might be between other cars.
Maybe if you forgot and there's a landmark or something.
But with both of these things, it seems like we're just upping the electronic load to just try to, I mean, they're gimmicks. Come on.
Entice customers with gimmicks?
Look what my car can
Right,
do. It was
right.
like, you never really stopped like, well, why do you want your car to do that?
Right. Now, stuff that helps the consumers, we're really all for. This car also, you can get it with a lot of advanced safety systems. Our car actually has something called Evasion Aid, which is new, which we haven't tested yet. It'll be part of our testing process, but that theoretically helps the car steer around an obstacle that is suddenly in your path. And also, it has, you can get forward collision warning and automatic emergency braking. But I'm curious, I mean, is it a little bit shameful on a car that starts over $52,000 that it doesn't come standard with forward collision warning and automatic emergency braking?
Well, there's the key thing. You said you can get it. So you have to order a number of option packages that total, by rough estimate, about $5,000 to get these features that you can get on, you can get low-speed automatic emergency braking on a Scion IA. You'll be able to get it on the upcoming Mazda CX-5 SUV. You can get 2 or 3 CX-5s for the price of one 5 Series. And then let alone other vehicles, other manufacturers that are putting it on standard equipment like Toyota across so many of their other vehicles.
I think like
at high
13 of their
speed.
models you
right.
can get on
and
it.
they all retail for less than a BMW 5 Series. So,
See-
and they're putting it in as like almost like, oh, you want this, you got to get a sunroof package and this and that and all these creature comforts. It's commoditizing safety.
Well, right. Is it a profit center? Is it a way to make money on the car, or is it a way to save lives? And you look at automatic emergency braking, the data is out. It prevents crashes. So to throw this in with a bin of all these other advanced technologies to say, oh, you could buy this and you could buy that. Well, this one is special because automatic emergency braking does prevent crashes and save lives. So perhaps we should just put that on the car. I mean, we shouldn't be like, oh, do you want airbags? Do you want crumple zones in the front? Check that box. Well, you can only get the crumple zones if you get the leather
seats or
interior and the
something,
sunroof.
right.
Just make it standard.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, let's try and get to a reader question here. A reader says they're trying to they need help finding a good replacement truck around $30,000 to $35,000 for their uncle. He currently owns a 2001 Tundra Access Cab. They're only looking at the Toyota Tacoma Double Cab because he owned a Tacoma before. I'm trying to get them to look at a Ridgeline, but he doesn't think of it as a real truck. Mainly uses it for commuting to work and school with occasional stuff in the bed, no towing. They prefer Japanese brands, but current Tundra Titan are too large. I mean, it already sounds like he sort of answered his own question. The Honda Ridgeline seems like this would be a pretty good.
I don't think that's his question. His question is, can you agree with me
to force his uncle to buy what he wants him to buy?
And yes, we could do that. You are right. He should get a Ridgeline. I mean, we've talked about the Ridgeline. It's one of our top picks this year. It is a terrific vehicle for exactly what it is needed for here. Commuting, occasionally using the bed. Yep. You'd be kind of crazy to get something with way more capability than you need, because what that capability comes with is all the penalties of those other vehicles, which they don't drive nice. Right. They have a bad ride. All these other things, they're noisier.
Now I'm going to be a dissenter here and say that I actually have a couple issues with the Ridgeline, which is, the bed is very shallow. So when I put my mountain bikes in the back or my motorcycles, it feels like they're sitting much higher up out of the truck than normal. And also,
have they fallen out?
No, but it's just there's some kind of a comfort factor with them, with the bed being that shallow.
See, with the comfort factor, I'm thinking like the nice ride and the quietness.
Maybe I'm not the best at tying down the bicycles and the motorcycles. But the other thing is that the bed has gotten larger, but it's still not that big, and you still have to angle. You still have to angle your bicycles. I'm just saying that it's not the perfect truck for everybody. There's still people that I want to be able to put a bicycle in straight in, put the tailgate up. Case closed, done.
Well, but exactly. If you don't need the additional capabilities, and yes, if you needed to tow 7,000 pounds, you would not buy a Ridgeline. But if you are in that envelope and you don't need those additional capabilities, and I put 4 bikes in the back, and yes, I turned the wheels and it was okay. But it's like, if you don't need those additional capabilities, don't get more truck than you need, and that's true across pickup trucks throughout.
Throughout. Buy the tool that you need for the job that you have. And the person here is driving to school, maybe making a dump run, and that's about it. They're not towing, they're not loading it up.
Probably is the better truck for most people.
It's going to drive better, it's going to be more comfortable, it's going to be less fatiguing. If he's loading the bed up, that Tacoma would ride it a lot better. But if he's going to drive it unladen, he would drive it without anything in the bed, thing's gonna bounce around and be all hoppy.
So his uncle just needs to get over the fact that it's not a real truck.
Maybe his friends will make fun of him for a bit, and then they're gonna take them. They're gonna keep asking his uncle to drive them around when they go somewhere because it's gonna be a heck of a lot more comfortable than climbing the back of that Toyota double cab.
It comes down to don't buy a chainsaw to slice up the turkey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it's more powerful, but
It's a good way of putting it.
there you go.
That's going to do it for this episode of Talking Cars. If you want to learn more about the cars we talked about, you can click on the links in the show notes below. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.